and told the governor's PR training manual. And there are 2 points in the governor's PR training manual. Point number 1, open mouth. Point number 2, insert foot. Beep, beep. Wokesters don't want any part of Jordan Peterson's new book because his pronouns are he, him, and his. And that's Penguin Random House versus Wokesters. You probably remember Jordan Peterson. He's the Canadian University professor who just has nothing but contempt for the whole political correctness thing, and got in a spot of bother with his employers at some university in Canada because he wouldn't play the pronoun game. He wants to be referred to as he, him, and his, and he won't play the game with other folks. Therese Verlahi again revises the history of the Chamorro Land Trust Act. And Janella adds to the Bill 312 saga. Kentucky's AG contrasts with ours. And given today's description of Sidney's filings, Tucker may have to eat a little crow. And that's on the card as Tucker Carlson versus Sidney Powell. And then finally, Tall Tales takes Justice Alito to the woodshed. That's Tall Tales versus Justice Alito. So that's today's card. So before I go plunging into the card, I notice I've got somebody waiting in the green room. And it's none other than our Fred, who wants to talk about extension by Governor Leon Guerrero. Extension of what, Jose?
I believe the health emergency just was extended.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, our Fred.
Hey, RAG, Senator, Judge. So did you hear the news? I guess you just heard it, huh?
What's that?
The public health emergency just got extended another 30 days.
Yeah, and they did this even though the 5 Republicans in the legislature introduced that resolution to end.
Wait. Which legislature? Do we have a legislature?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, well, it's well hidden. So, wait a minute. I guess they never did introduce that. In fact, one of the senators was angry because we didn't check with her first. And the other senator was just angry, but they haven't done anything. So the governor has the ability to declare these territorial emergencies for 30-day periods, and at the end of each period, she can declare another 30-day emergency ad infinitum to the end of time, and that's why Ray and I sent the Bob and Ray resolution to the 5 Republicans saying, you guys could end this tomorrow with a resolution. And of course, they ran from it as though it were infected with the plague. So I didn't hear that it had been extended, but it's not even really news, Fred, because it's completely expected that she will continue to do this probably until the next election.
Well, Bob, I mean, there's 2 things. One is the legislature can only override it if we had a legislature. We don't.
True enough.
We need to form a task force to commission a invention of a legislature for senators. Guam needs senators, and we have to invent that wheel for Guam. Secondly, it's not surprising, but it's pretty ironic that it's extended at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday, so no one can say anything.
Well, one of the rules of public relations, Fred, is if you got some really good news, you want to break it on Monday, because if you do it right, you can control the news cycle for a whole week. If it's something that you want to disappear, break it on Friday night so that it disappears really quick.
Yeah, well, that's a shame. It just got extended to pretty much New Year's Eve, close to that. And on Ray's show, we heard the chamber this morning, Chamber of Commerce and all that. And I think some other days we heard GHRA. Bob, it's very interesting that the one question, all these people that have all this stuff to talk about, the chamber and GHRA and whoever's talking, the leaders there, I want to know if any one of them has a commercial lease that they're paying rent on, because that's the most important factor on how quick they move, if they have a commercial lease. And I doubt any of them do.
Well, Fred,
ones,
they moved really fast. They got so upset with what the governor was doing. They had a motorcade.
Oh.
And they were probably going 15 miles an hour in that. And, if there's anything that is persuasive, it's a motorcade. So that's the depth of their feeling.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wee. Well, Guam is in shambles. The private sector is in shambles, and you have the stay-at-home, safer order, PCOR 1 going on. It is just pathetic. This is just plain old pathetic. And you're pretty much asked to run with your two hands tied behind your back and say, hey, go manage. You can do it. Curbside, takeout, you can do it.
Drive-throughs.
Hey, drive-throughs. So all the businesses that have square footage and tables that are sitting empty and paying rent on that square footage, what about that? All these different discussions and let's have a conversation and all that. It's pointless. Action needs to be taken. So-called actionless pack. Nothing ever happened with that either.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's all, Bob. I just wanted to bring that to light. Maybe you didn't hear about the executive order being extended.
Well, I guess your call is kind of in response to that announcement from the Department of, what are they called? What used to be called?
Parks and Health and SS, Hitler's SS Men. I don't know. Something like that, the abbreviation stands for. I don't know.
Behavior Health and Wellness Center. You should reach out to somebody. And you reached out, so you did what you're supposed to do, Fred. So thanks for calling.
Maybe you can talk about it. Thanks.
Okay, Fred. Okay, short break coming up here.
Did you know your smartphone is one of the most powerful tools in our fight against COVID-19? That's why we're bringing you the Guam COVID Alert Exposure Notification app. Developed by Google, Apple, and the PathCheck Foundation, the app works by letting you know if you've been exposed to someone who's positive. It's completely voluntary, and more importantly, it's anonymous. Add your phone to the COVID fight. Go to guamcovidalert.guam.gov or download it from the App Store or Google Play now. Help Guam stop COVID-19.
Half a day. This is Michelle from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and Mezcla Dos are open for takeout and delivery services. More details, call the Hagåtña location at 479-2652 or Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon at 646-6295. Get your Mezcla fix at the comfort of your home.
Okay, so here we are again, back on Tall Tales, and sorry, folks, but our Facebook is not working right now. So if you're listening to me either on the radio or on the app.
I'm showing it's running, so you might have to reset it on your side.
Okay.
And that's one of those things. The router reset is what the information I receive from our tech.
All right, let me try again. one moment here while I see if I can get back to Facebook. I miss your comments, of course. I notice our phone is pretty active today too, huh?
It's Christmas already. It's lighting up like a tree. I also have the link for the app on the Apple App Store because I use an Apple device, so I'll put that on the show as well.
Good. Well, I'm in Facebook, and I see my smiling face here on the screen, so I guess we're back. We're back up on Facebook, so you should be able to hear me on Facebook, and you should be able to enter your comments. I guess I lost all of the comments that were on there before. Huh? No, here they are. They all popped up again. Roland Torres, Jose Martinez. Yeah, I see your link there, Jose. Okay, good. So first item on the card is the Department of Public Harassment and Secret Services versus you. And this is a story that ran on KOAM on Wednesday night. If you're caught violating the governor's executive orders, you could be subject to a fine. After 2 public hearings, effective Thanksgiving Day, the Department of Public Harassment and the Guam Police Department will begin issuing fines and penalties. Now, to individuals and businesses violating guidance and directives issued to combat Wuhan virus. If you're caught violating the governor's executive orders, you could be subject to a fine. For individuals failing to comply with the guidelines related to congregations or special gatherings, social distancing and wearing of masks when congregating with persons not from the same household, or restrictions on the use of public parks or beaches, and on organized or contact sports, the following penalties would apply. First offense, $100. Second offense, $250. Third offense, $1,000. For businesses, first offense, $1,000. Second, $2,500. Third, $10,000. According to the Joint Information Center, challenges to citations can be made through the Traffic Division of the Superior Court of Guam. Not only can challenges be made, but that's where you got to go to pay. Traffic court. Now, to their credit, they've actually posted this new regulation on the website, the compiler's website. So it's 26 GCR chapter, I think it's chapter 28, which I happen to have right here in front of me. And this is not going to be easy to comply with. The definitions read this, the important definitions. Guidance memorandums or directives shall mean the official documents issued by the Department of Public Health and Social Services for the mitigation, containment, and prevention of the spread of Wuhan virus, the virus that causes, whatever you want to call it. So that's guidance, memorandums, or directives. All of this stuff that the Department of Public Harassment and Secret Services crank out. Do you know where you can find those? No, I don't either.
You have to get fined for you to find out.
Yeah, no, you can go to Public Health's website, but it's just not that easy to find out what you can do and what you can't do, I guess, until you get fined. And so the regulation goes on, and it indicates what prohibited conduct amounts to willful violation of or failure to comply with any guidance or directive issued by DPHSS relating to the following shall constitute a civil violation. A, congregations or social gatherings. Well, what congregations? What social gatherings? Well, you got to go to that stuff that public health cranks out, changes, amends, etc. B, social distancing and the wearing of masks when congregating. C, restrictions on the use of public parks or beaches. Even the governor doesn't know what the rule is on public beaches. And then there's another set here for businesses. And then the schedule of fines, $100, $250, $1,000, etc. And then let's see. Somewhere in these regulations, it tells you that these matters are subject to the adjudication by, oh, here we go. Violations of DPHSS guidance memoranda or directives will be recorded on forms approved by and prosecuted within the traffic division of the Superior Court. So my suspicion is they're going to use the book of uniform traffic citations. Fill that out, give it to you with a date. I'm going to come back to the traffic division of the Superior Court right after this big halftime show. And let's see, I got somebody on the line too, don't I? I lost my stack.
It's our Carl's on the line, and he just has a comment he can hold to after the break.
All right. I gotta get back to my stack.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
It's not all gravy for the president this holiday. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. As he continues with his election challenges, President Trump at a Thanksgiving news conference taking questions from reporters.
I think that there will be a lot of things happening between now and the 20th of January. A lot of things. Massive fraud has been found. We're like a third world country. We're using computer equipment that can be hacked. They talk about glitches. How many glitches did they find? So a glitch. Oh, gee, we had a glitch, 5,000 votes. In all cases, right? In all cases, the votes went from Trump to Biden. They didn't go from Biden. The glitches were never from Biden to Trump.
Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden sharing a Thanksgiving message on social media, commending Americans who chose to stay home and celebrate with only a few family members. And former U.S. National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has something to be thankful for this holiday.
Michael Flynn's family says that they are very grateful to President Trump for granting that full pardon yesterday afternoon. They say the president has removed the heavy burden of injustice from Flynn's shoulders, while Democrats argue that it's an abuse of power and an act of corruption. The Flynn pardon could be the first of many during President Trump's final weeks in office. He's also believed to be considering pardons for people like Paul Manafort and potentially Roger Stone, among others.
Fox's Kristen Fisher. And the race for Georgia's 2 Senate seats heats up as the runoff election draws closer.
We've already seen a stream of high-profile politicians coming to Georgia to campaign for each of those 4 candidates. They're set for the runoff race on January 5th because these 2 races could actually determine control of the Senate. We've seen also more than $270 million spent already on TV ads. Most of those ads sharply negative attack ads. One man on the receiving end of a lot of those ads is the Democrat Raphael Warnock. He's been accused of being too radical for Georgia and anti-American.
Fox's Steve Harrigan. America is listening to Fox News.
As we celebrate Thanksgiving this year in a very different way, the team at Security Title has been busy focusing on the things that we are grateful for. Without exception, our gratitude starts with the love of family and the faith in the future of our island. We are grateful for the meaningful work supporting our realtors, lenders, buyers and sellers, and other partners in the real estate industry. From the Security Title family, we wish you and yours a very blessed Thanksgiving.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Well, the coronavirus isn't stopping many Americans from traveling and spending the holiday with their families, despite pleas from public health officials and state leaders. Fox's Casey Stiegel has more from Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport.
The nation's fourth busiest airport when it comes to overall passenger traffic. And for the Thanksgiving holiday period, officials here estimate that they're going to do about 65% of their volume compared to last year's numbers. But nationwide, that number is actually a little bit lower. AAA has projected that some of the air travel will be cut in half when you compare it to last year's tally. But that is translating into long lines already at places like Los Angeles International Airport, Boston Logan Airport as well. This has many infectious disease experts, frankly, very worried.
Also new tonight, Rome's main airport says Italian authorities will soon approve an experiment with so-called COVID-tested flights from 3 U.S. airports with the aim of eliminating the requested 14-day quarantine for passengers arriving in Italy. Pending approval, starting sometime in December, passengers coming from New York, Newark, or Atlanta airports wouldn't have to quarantine if they test negative for the coronavirus within 48 hours of departure and also upon arrival. Meanwhile, restaurant owners in Los Angeles County are sounding the alarm as the county reinstates coronavirus restrictions.
A LA Superior Court judge rejected a plea by the California Restaurant Association to block the new outdoor dining ban. The judge said the association did not show, quote, solid evidence that the ban was inappropriate. However, he's still open to hearing any new evidence. Meantime, restaurant owners continue to struggle to stay in business. The Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation predicts approximately 700,000 jobs in the food industry will be lost in this shutdown.
Fox's Christina Coleman. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show, starring Senator Mona Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mona Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today, like listen to us Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
Here at The Point, we're thankful for a lot of things.
Our awesome sponsors.
An island full of pride and passion.
And a perfect place to do business.
But when we reflect on it,
we're most thankful to have you listening.
We hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
And thank you for listening
to The Point.
Chili's has a dinner deal you can't miss. Enjoy a tasty appetizer, 2 bottomless Coca-Cola beverages, and 2 mouth-watering entrees, all for just $35. Treat yourself to entree options like our fall-off-the-bone baby back ribs, personal fajita with chicken, or the ultimate bacon burger. Chili's 2 for $35. Available daily from 3 p.m. to closing for patio dining or takeout. Chili's is located on the 2nd floor of the Tucumán Sands Plaza. Call 648-7377 to place your takeout order today. With Chili's, you can still savor the moment at home.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are, back again after that big halftime show that we've all come to know and love so well. And I thought that we would have a person waiting in the green room here right after the halftime show, but I don't see him in that green room.
Mission called?
He must have changed his mind. He's probably out on a secret mission somewhere, no doubt, huh? Okay, so as far as the Department of Public Health and Secret Services, as I understand it, it's going to work like this. If someone from either the Guam Police Department or the Department of Public Health and Secret Services catches someone in the act of violating one of these not regulations, but guidance, what is it called again? Guidance. Guidance or directives. So if someone is in violation of public health guidance or directives, whatever that might be, then this employee from public health or a police officer who catches you in the act of doing that can write out what amounts to something like a traffic citation, hand it to you with a date on it. You will then have until the date on that ticket to go down and pay your fine, or if you so desire, you can show up on that date and you'll have a little trial in the traffic court. And if you don't prevail in the traffic court, you can take an appeal to the Superior Court. You can make a court case out of it if you so desire. There's an interesting wrinkle to this, and that is what happens to the money that's collected. And the very end of these regulations, right before the obligatory severability clause, you find language like this. Fines collected under this section shall be shared equally by GPO and DPHSS, with funds for DPHSS deposited in the DPHSS COVID-19 account. So I think when they say shared equally by GPO, I think maybe they mean GPD.
I hope so.
Otherwise, they're going to go up to Guam Premier Outlets, which probably can use the money, given that their business is so slow. So this raises an interesting question that Ray and I were talking about this morning. And I remember a famous old case, Toomey versus Ohio, goes all the way back to 1927. To an Ohio setup where judges who heard prohibition law violations were paid, could collect some of the fines themselves, but of course only if they found the defendant guilty. And the United States Supreme Court said that this was unconstitutional. So probably not a close enough nexus here between the Guam Police Department and the Department of Public Health and Social Services COVID-19 account, but I got to look into it a little bit farther because there was a Northern Marianas case that went to the Ninth Circuit on this very issue. So yeah, so I'll chat a little bit about that on Monday. And of course, the reason for Toomey versus Ohio is that you at all costs must avoid conflict of interest. So if a judge makes more money by finding people guilty than he does for finding them not guilty, that would seem to be a conflict. But I'll speak a little bit more about this on Monday. But in any case, the regulations are in place, and I suspect the citation books are in the hands of the Department of Public Health employees. And now, without going to the green room and welcoming in our distinguished guest, the poet laureate of Tall Tales, Andrew Camacho, has another offering. Andrew says, when stealth drones above Zoom, think of this great nom de plume of a clear-headed thinker, a martini drinker, the most dangerous man in the room. Yeah. With an intro like that, Carl, you're going to want to call every day.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob.
Sure.
And Jose. And International Tall Tales Truth Posse. Yeah, I just wanted to call in regarding these fines. I heard an interview with a doctor, and she said something that I thought was just very much on point. She said lockdowns, and I'm sure she also meant rigid mask mandates with fines and things like that, are luxuries of the rich. You don't find that in most poor places in the world. The concept of locking down and not going out to get food for survival is totally foreign to these people. So, and I've seen so many examples of this, of lockdowns and such things being luxuries of the rich and the politically well-connected. One of the most famous ones recently was Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who had been berating citizens and saying they should not get together in groups, as leading up to Thanksgiving. And someone caught him in a photo at probably the ritziest restaurant in all of California. This is like $300 a plate. And him and his guests, or whoever he was with, were gathered around this large table, and there wasn't 6 inches separating any of them, and they weren't wearing masks, not one of them. And there's another story I saw recently of the Denver mayor, who had been highly encouraging the citizens in Denver to not travel. And 30 minutes after sending out that comment, I don't know if he did it by tweet or what it was, but he boarded an airplane and went to spend a holiday, Thanksgiving, with his family. Just 30 minutes after he had been strongly telling citizens in Denver not to do that. So, it's just, all we're doing is creating another example of two classes of people. And of course, people who are connected and they get fined by these things and they have connections, they're going to call in their connections and they're going to get the fines dropped. And people who aren't connected or who aren't wealthy and can't afford it are just going to get whacked. So it's just more of the same.
Carl, you're beginning to sound like a social justice warrior.
Oh, please do not tar me with that.
Of course, you could always just say, well, yeah, I know people thought I was a social justice warrior, but that was just a disguise for the mission I was on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To infiltrate some identity politics group, right?
Yes. But I just thought that doctor's comment was so perfect because, rigid lockdowns and such things are really luxuries of the rich and the politically well-connected. Ordinary people can't do that for long. They try and do it for a while in some of the poorer countries, but it can't last. People need to go out. They need to do their best to get groceries. They might need to hunt. They need to do things to survive. So, I just think we're, again, creating two classes of people as we've done repeatedly in the past. And it's unfortunate. It really is.
Well, 3 classes, because there are some people who, during the lockdown, will stay home and not go anywhere at all because their government of Guam checks go to the bank with direct deposit. So they don't even have to go downtown to pick up their check and take it to the bank. So they can do it. Now, the poor folks that don't have a job don't have to worry about a check because they're not getting any. So I suspect some of them would probably go out and figure out some way to try to make a buck, mowing a lawn, washing a car, whatever, pandemic or no pandemic.
I find ironic, because I think when people speak up, they've got their small business that they might have taken years to try and get going and build up. Most small businesses fail within the first 5 years. And, they might have been working, 10, 12 hours a day, 6, maybe 7 days a week, many times to get this thing going. Starting up a small business is often extremely hard. And so, along comes this, and it just destroys the work of a lifetime and employment for however many people are in, a particular company that count on that money for survival, to feed their families. My wife worked in the hotel industry the pastry kitchen for almost 25 years.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was a sweet career, but her career combined with mine allowed us to purchase a home, to buy vehicles, to raise 4 kids, to afford health insurance, to travel 8 times to try and extend her life because of her, her illness. She was dealing with breast cancer. But bureaucrats just don't comprehend this because they are not paying the same price as the private sector is.
Well, everybody in the government of Guam has been drawing a check through this whole thing. And then the other thing that happened, Carl, is that we fall into this, what I refer to as if it saves just one life, it's worth it trap. It's going to be hard on everybody, but it may save lives, so therefore it's okay. Now, of course, if we set the speed limit on our highways at 5 miles an hour, we could probably cut traffic deaths down to 0. But that would be worth it, right? Because it would save lives, and it's kind of the same kind of reasoning that we're engaged in right now. Well, it's a dangerous pandemic, and I don't want to risk any lives, so I'll just shut down everything. Instead of people dying, the economy will die, right, Carl?
Yeah, and a closer, similar example to this virus is the flu, which there's flu season every year. 2017 and 2018 flu season, CDC figures show that over 61,000 Americans died. Over 810,000 Americans were hospitalized. And no one wants anybody to die from the flu.
Yeah, you know why, Carl? Because if you die from the flu, you don't get your heirs don't get the $10,000 benefit. You have to die of the Wuhan virus. I suspect even the Andrew Camacho gloss on the Wuhan virus would do it.
Yeah, so, I'm just hoping this is not the new normal, where every time there's any hint of the flu or another version of the coronavirus, that everything just comes to a grinding halt. And, the economy gets a gut punch again. Because there's only so much of that an economy can take.
Well, we'll keep fighting that here in Tall Tales with your help, okay? Most dangerous man in the room?
Okay, Bob. Thanks for allowing me to chime in. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay, the most dangerous man in the room. If danger had a name, it would be our Carl. Yeah. Okay, next item on the card is the Diocese of Brooklyn versus Cuomo. And I know there's a lot of interest in this case. And the shorthand rendition of this one is, the Supreme Court says you can't shut down the churches because of the virus. And that's not untrue, but the story is unfortunately a whole lot more complicated than that. And of course, you've come to the right place here to get the complete story. But before I jump into it, I'm going to ask Jose if he'll give us the Law and Order chord. Okay, so I have an article by my favorite legal columnist, Jonathan Turley. He says the U.S. Supreme Court delivered a surprising blow to pandemic restrictions on a house of worship in a late-night order barring the enforcement of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's October 6 cluster initiative limiting attendance at religious services. Now, I've got to make a little bit of an explanation here. I've been into this before, and that is that there are a couple of different ways to get to the Supreme Court. One way is from a petition for a writ of certiorari from a court of appeals of the United States Court of Appeals, on a petition for a writ of certiorari from the Supreme Court of any state. And then the third way is what's called the Supreme Court's shadow document, as you were, shadow docket. And what that means is this, that if there is a case pending anywhere in the federal system, one Supreme Court justice can stay that case. In other words, freeze it right in place so that it doesn't go any farther than where it's at. And it can be one Supreme Court justice, because I've explained before, we have 9 Supreme Court justices. We have 13 courts of appeals, or 13 circuits, basically. And each circuit is assigned to one of the justices on the Supreme Court. So that justice, that circuit justice, can stay any pending proceeding in that circuit on petition from one of the litigants. Sometimes justices just do it by themselves. Sometimes they'll refer it to the entire Supreme Court. That's what happened in this case of Diocese of Brooklyn versus Cuomo. It was the Supreme Court's shadow document, as were shadow docket, where the Supreme Court stayed the enforcement of New York's law dealing with churches and synagogues. And I'm going to go straight to the raw meat here of the Supreme Court's written decision on this matter. Here's how it reads. At the same time, the governor has chosen to impose no capacity restrictions on certain businesses he considers essential, and it turns out the businesses the governor considers essential include hardware stores, acupuncturists and liquor stores, bicycle repair shops, certain signage companies, accountants, lawyers, and insurance agents are also essential too. So at least according to the governor, it may be unsafe to go to church, but it's always fine to pick up another bottle of wine, shop for a new bike, or spend the afternoon exploring your distal points and meridians. Who knew public health would so perfectly align with secular convenience? And then Gorsuch added, it's time, past time, to make plain that while the pandemic poses many grave challenges, there is no world in which the Constitution tolerates color-coded executive edicts that reopen liquor stores and bike shops, but shutter churches, synagogues, and mosques. Okay, we have a dissenting opinion from the Chief Justice, Mr. Roberts, who this time, of course, went with the minority. And as explained on Ratio, my analysis of Chief Justice Roberts is that he is an institutionalist. And that by that I mean that his focus is to handle his position as Chief Justice in such a manner as to enhance the image of the Supreme Court. Not too long ago, he came out and said, we don't have Democrat justices and Republican justices. We just have justices of the Supreme Court. So he wants to avoid the perception that, now that there are 6 conservatives, 6 appointees, 6 justices appointed by conservative presidents and 3 liberals, that every case is going to go that way. That's my analysis of his approach to being Chief Justice. But this is what he said. He said, as noted, the challenge restrictions raise serious concerns under the Constitution, and I agree with Justice Kavanaugh that they are distinguishable from those we considered in South Bay United Pentecostal Church versus Newsom. That's the California case, along with Calvary Chapel of Dayton versus Cecilak, that went the other way, that did not find a free exercise dimension in the state's handling of the virus. Roberts goes on to say, I take a different approach than the other dissenting justices in this respect. To be clear, I do not regard my dissenting colleagues as, quote, cutting the Constitution loose during a pandemic, yielding to a, quote, particular judicial impulse to stay out of the way in times of crisis, or, quote, sheltering in place when the Constitution is under attack. This all came from Gorsuch's opinion, Gorsuch's concurring opinion. And then Roberts goes on to say, they simply view the matter differently after careful study and analysis reflecting their best efforts to fulfill their responsibility under the Constitution. Roberts said that he didn't go with the majority because he thought it was unnecessary, because New York had already removed the restrictions that were at issue in the case. Kind of a quiet finding of mootness on the part of Roberts. But the majority said, well, yeah, that's today, but they could put them back tomorrow. And we went through the same dance on that Second Amendment case where New York and New York City both amended their laws to moot out a Second Amendment case that was before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court dismissed. The initiative in New York created color-coded limits on mass gatherings and business operations, with houses of worship in designated red zones limited to 25% of their capacity, or 10 people, whichever is fewer. Okay, so it's time for the 7th inning stretch. And I'll come back here to the Diocese of Brooklyn versus Cuomo after the 7th inning stretch. And when I finish Diocese of Brooklyn, then I'll get to our phone caller, Martinez, who's patiently waiting in the green room and wants to talk about the CAR score.
Contact tracing is key to containing COVID-19. That's why we're introducing the Guam COVID Alert app. According to Oxford University, for every 100 to 200 downloads of this app, 100 infections can be prevented and 1 life can be saved. Help save a life. Go to guamcovidalert.guam.gov or download the app from the App Store or Google Play now. Add your phone to the COVID fight. Help Guam stop COVID-19.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Okay, seventh inning stretch. Here we are, Wrigley Field, Chicago. And we go from Wrigley Field straight to Brooklyn. I would like to go from Wrigley Field to Ebbets Field. That was real baseball. Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. But they ended the tradition, packed up and moved to Los Angeles. Sad day for baseball. 1957. I remember it like it was yesterday. Okay, Diocese of Brooklyn now. I know that our folks here on Guam who are paying attention to this are probably thinking, well, the Supreme Court finally ruled in our favor. Not exactly. Not really. Because this is the Supreme Court's shadow docket. They enjoined the enforcement of New York's law only until the Second Circuit Court of Appeals can address the merits of the case. That's where it is now. In other words, the Diocese of Brooklyn and the synagogue involved lost at the trial court, at the district court, and they appealed to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and then the diocese and the synagogue petitioned the Supreme Court for a stay, which was granted. But this will only last until the Second Circuit reaches the merits, and if they find that, well, depending on what their finding is, there may then be a petition for certiorari to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to entertain the merits. No, nothing says they will. So the value of this Diocese of Brooklyn case for our local situation is not that great. I mean, it's always very comforting to be able to say, well, the Supreme Court said that, but that isn't exactly what happened here, given the explanation that I just mentioned to you. However, it does serve this purpose. It allowed 5 of the justices to tip their hats, to kind of show their whole cards as to what they're going to do when a similar case comes before them. In the California case and the other case that I mentioned that went the other way, the turning point was the courts deciding who should decide. And there they said, well, you know, here in the judiciary, we're not really very good at dealing with things like disease and pandemic and public health and things like that. So we ought to really give great deference to state officials as to how they're handling that. They seem to have turned that corner here in this Diocese of Brooklyn case, and now are apparently more willing to get into the nitty-gritty of what government's doing in these situations. And, of course, Mayor Cuomo says, well, this is pretty predictable. They appointed Amy Coney Barrett, and now they got 5. For him, it's just a matter of arithmetic, just counting noses. And according to one of the other commentators that I read, the opinion was a per curiam opinion, meaning it's unsigned. Per curiam means the opinion of the court. And I spent a little time with Gorsuch's concurring opinion, and Senorita Sotomayor also wrote a dissent. But those who analyze such things suggest that the per curiam opinion, the unsigned opinion, was actually written by Amy Coney Barrett, based on the vocabulary, the style of writing, etc., examination of her writings when she was on the Seventh Circuit. And this one, you know, people who pay attention to such things say, yeah, Amy Coney Barrett wrote that one. So if that's the case, Amy Coney Barrett is kind of living up to our expectations. And I guess from now on, we keep our fingers crossed. And, of course, the 5 conservatives who are on court now seem to be that, conservatives, not worried so much about the image of the Supreme Court like Chief Justice Roberts, who I hold to be an institutionalist. So as usual, I'm going to be watching this like a hawk and keeping you informed of all of the breaking details. Next item on the card is the governor versus the United States Navy. And in today's program notes, I mentioned that I was able to obtain the governor's public relations training manual. It only has 2 items. Governor's public relations training manual. Number 1, open mouth. Number 2, insert foot. Yeah. But I'll get to that just as soon as I entertain Martinez, who wants to talk about car score. Right, Martinez?
Correct, Senator. On the car score. I wanted to call up this morning what I did to the Ray Gibson show. And your partner, Ray Gibson, announces to the world that I'm going to talk next. Then he starts yapping and yapping and yapping and yapping. And then he brings on another guest in front of me, and then it's 8 o'clock. So I just hang up. Thank God you don't do that. I hope Ray doesn't do that again.
I do my own share of yapping here on Tall Tales too, Martinez, but anyhow.
Yeah. Anyway, this car score, it's very clear. It doesn't make sense, and it's done so the governor has said if the car score falls to 5.0 or below, she would lift social gathering restrictions for the remainder of the holiday season. So she wants to use something to make everybody happy, maybe around Christmas time. But this is made up by Dr. Felix Cabrera. It makes no sense. Look, it's based on 3 values. Daily new cases per 100,000, test positive rate. Well, those 2 are the same thing. And then the third one is retransmission value of the rate of spread. What's that? We just multiply the 3 values. There's no way to calculate this. Martinez, who follows sports like you have distant stats in baseball, I can make a car score just common sense. Probably you'd have one that you'd give a lot of weight to, and that would be you look at, maybe you can use the 7-day average of the daily rate of positive cases dealing with people that have symptoms and people that are in close contact. Then a second one, you'd give lower weight to the daily rate of positive cases of those that are, not in close contact and don't have symptoms, society as a whole. Then you look at number of people in the hospitals. Then your fourth one, you look at number of people in the ventilators. Then your fifth one is the number of people that died. Something like that. But how could this be going down and down when deaths have been going up and up? And I've been following the percentage almost every day, and it fluctuates. It goes down like this one today. If you look at the numbers here, that's an increase of over 18%. That's a whole lot more than the last 2 days. There's no way this thing can go down tomorrow. It's got to go up. So it's just a phony thing made so the governor can justify, lifting stuff. But it's very clear. It makes no sense. They can use a common one like that. I just had to get that in, Senator.
Just had to get it off your chest, right, Martinez?
Yeah, and it's just common math. I can make a score, the way I said it's the way to do it. Anyway, you asked me to look up that word, and I did. And it said, I had somebody check it for me. And it says getting pleasure over somebody's misfortune. But the reason why I'm happy Ken Leon Guerrero lost is, in my opinion, we don't need somebody like that in the legislature, especially for, my fellow brothers and sisters that ride the bus, the disabled. Like I say, just go to Google and type in Able Industries Ken Leon Guerrero. So it's not his misfortune. It's just that I'm grateful that somebody like that will not sit in the next legislature. I'm grateful for that. That's all I got to say for today, Senator.
Well, I just would come back to the word schadenfreude. When you say that you're happy because someone had some misfortune, every people who hear you are going to think, yeah, that's schadenfreude. You perhaps could express it like you did today, and the word schadenfreude wouldn't come into the conversation.
Good point, Senator. Very good point.
Okay, Martinez. Always good talking to you.
Yep.
That was Martinez. All right. So next on the agenda here is the governor versus the United States Navy. And this was on the calendar before as dairy farmers and the Republicans versus the governor, or De La Valle versus our very own milkmaid, Lou Leon Guerrero, right? So the reason that I retitled it is that it had been a local story, but is now a national story. I'm going to read from the Stars and Stripes. It ran in the Stars and Stripes. It ran in Military Times. So I suspect that people in the United States military all over the world now know about about the utter nonsense that our governor has tagged us with. And here's how it goes. Stars and Stripes, 25 November. Guam Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, a Democrat, recently came under fire from the territory's Republicans for saying her administration is, quote, milking concessions from the federal government in exchange for hosting the Wuhan virus-stricken aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt in March. And then there's a couple of paragraphs telling about what happened, and of course we all know that. And then a quote from the governor, "The best decision I ever made." You know, I could do so much. I could do a whole program on that one.
It's the least she could do.
Yeah, the best decision she ever made. Well, if you only make one good decision, it's not real. You don't need Martinez and his statistical calculations to figure out which one was the best. She said, "The best decision I ever made is allowing the USS Theodore Roosevelt to go to our hotels because they think we're just the bomb." Wow, Leon Guerrero said, referring to the U.S. military during a group chat Thursday on Facebook that was posted to the KUAM news page. During that chat, Leon Guerrero said the island has enough personal protective equipment on hand to combat the Wuhan virus. Guam, with a population of nearly 160,000, on Tuesday reported a pandemic total of 6,655 viral cases and 107 deaths, according to the Joint Information Center there. The U.S. government, she said, provided a good inventory of protective gear. FEMA and the military also directed that Guam get whatever it asked for, the governor added. She said the territory has since received more than 79 ventilators and a solid inventory of personal protective equipment, etc. A Navy Secretary, Kenneth Brathwaite, also agreed to return unused military land to Guam, Leon Guerrero said. Leon Guerrero said the land would be the site of a new hospital. Now, here we go. And then after she said that, she said, "So we're milking it. We're milking it very hard." So I don't think that the governor, I don't think the governor needs her own beep beep horn, because I don't think anybody thinks that what the governor was talking about was sitting on a milk stool and pulling on the udders of a bovine. That's not what she meant by we're milking it. What she's saying is we're going to get as much out of this as we can. And in a sense, what she's saying is, I really put one over on those Navy dudes. They thought that they were doing something good, but I think we really took advantage of them, and we're going to keep taking advantage of them because we're milking it. Not a good thing to say, Governor. If I could once again suggest, and this is about the 5th time I think I've had to do this. The last time I did it was when you when you dissed Maria Senzon when she was appointed to the Superior Court. You didn't even mention her name. Yes, say her name. Say her name. Yeah. So if I could suggest the wording of what you could have said, we helped out the Navy by putting up the sailors from the Teddy Roosevelt in our hotels when they pulled in here with a shipload of 6 sailors. And we've always had a good relationship with the Navy, but this really kind of cemented things. And the Navy was very grateful. They've given us a lot of things to help us to deal with the pandemic. And the Secretary of the Navy has even said that they're going to give us some land upon which I'm going to build a new hospital. So this is a good thing. This is the way things ought to work, where we can cooperate to our mutual benefit. And I'm very thankful for the way that the Navy sees it the same way. Compare that with, we're milking it. We're milking it very hard. Just not very smart, Governor.
So you're just trying to be a hero to some.
Yeah, to some, but probably angering most. I don't want, if I ever get a chance to go off island again, I don't want anybody to say, hey, is your governor still in the dairy business over there? I thought that was supposed to be Wisconsin, the dairy state. Yeah. Okay, we're coming up here to the home stretch, so we'll take a short break.
Contact tracing is key to containing COVID-19. That's why we're introducing the Guam COVID Alert app. According to Oxford University, for every 100 to 200 downloads of this app, 100 infections can be prevented and 1 life can be saved. Help save a life. Go to guamcovidalert.guam.gov or download the app from the App Store or Google Play now. Add your phone to the COVID fight. Help Guam stop COVID-19.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations. Check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play, or go to thepoint.gu. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So I'm going to just finish this up in a second here, and then I'm going to go. I've got our Keith on the line who wants to comment on all things Gov Guam. So I guess instead of our Keith, he should be our eclectic Keith. But anyhow, to finish this up, the comments drew an instant rebuke from the Republican Party. Quote, when a stranger is hungry or hurt, we extend our arms and help, not because of what we will attain in return, because of who we are and what our manamko has taught us to be, said a party statement published by the Guam Daily Post on Saturday. We did not extend our arms so that we can, quote, milk the military or the federal government in return. Yeah, good point. And then the rest of the story is Crystal Paco San Augustine, formerly known as Crystal Paco, doing damage control. But of course, it's too late. Once the cow got out in the pasture, what he does out there is kind of out of your control.
Spilt milk.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what our Keith has to say about Gov Guam and Gov Guam. All things Gov Guam. Good afternoon, R. Keith.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I hope you had a enjoyable and politically incorrect Thanksgiving. Couple things. First, to the point that you're discussing right now, I give kudos to the Guam Republican Party for a very proper response. You help people because they need help. You don't help people with the idea of what can you get out of it. And okay, if you do get something out of it, you don't throw it back into their face and go lauding it around the block. I find that behavior of the governors to be classless. Not necessarily surprising, but classless. With regards to the restrictions that the governor put forth, I must throw myself on the sympathy of the Tall Tales court here. I must admit that during my Thanksgiving yesterday, I had two others in the house, and we did not participate in social distancing, and we did not wear masks.
I have to ask you a question, R. Keith. What kind of shirt are you wearing right now?
I will a blue T-shirt.
A T-shirt? You know what's
Yeah.
you know what's going to happen next. You know how the Red Queen would deal with this, right?
I know.
First
I
the
know,
verdict,
but,
then the punishment. Off with his head.
Although it must be said in my defense, the reason I couldn't get the masks on the two cats was because they couldn't sit still long enough.
An affirmative defense, R. Keith.
Yes, there we go. And my apologies. Maybe I realize I'm a little late to the game here. You had, and maybe I just need to go onto the online and view what you had said. But it seems to me that the Guam economy is charging headlong into a brick wall. The federal funds are running out shortly. The Guam Daily Post deserves some kudos for bringing this up 2 days in a row in their op-ed. And I just don't see any acknowledgement of the fiscal cliff that we're driving towards by anyone in Gov Guam. Am I missing something?
No, you have seen exactly the same thing that all of us have seen, which is nothing. That's kind of an epistemological problem. How do you see nothing? But that's what we've seen.
Okay, well, glad I didn't miss something at least. It should make for a very interesting Christmas holiday.
Yeah, it's not gonna be fun, that's for sure, Arkeith.
Yeah. And one last, have you considered putting together maybe a theme song for the governor for when she does these sorts of things or her weekly diktats? I was thinking the Darth Vader theme from Star Wars.
Good idea. I'm going to, we have a talent department back in the Tall Tales think tank. That's where you'll find the poet laureate of Tall Tales, Andrew Camacho.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the ghost of Cole Porter and Rogers and Hammerstein are back there. But we'll see what we can do to come up with a theme song for the governor.
Anyway, just random thoughts before the end of the day. Enjoy your show. Look forward to it on Monday.
Oh, it's a pleasure talking to you, Arkeith. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Enjoy.
I think this one I've always enjoyed. They call it something else in the menu. I forgot the real name of that one was. You remember the Benny Hill show?
Yeah, I recognize the music, but I don't. It sounds almost Dwayne Eddy-ish, if you remember Dwayne Eddy.
No, I don't, but...
His number one song was 40 Miles of Bad Road.
This is whenever chaos ensues, that music played in the background.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think for the governor's theme song, though, we need something more like a dirge, But I'm sure our poet laureate is working on something right now. So maybe we'll have something on Monday. And Steve Martinez said the governor's theme song could be the song from Home Alone. That was at Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas movie, right? And Mark Cruz says the Benny Hill theme. I guess that's where you got it. Okay, we got just a couple seconds here before we turn into pumpkins here. Go riding off on our pumpkins with no footman, etc. Jose and I have a real tough couple of days ahead here. We're going to have 70 hours of no tall tales, no tailgaters. It's going to be really tough. But somehow we'll make it, even if we have to call the hotline over there at mental health and substance abuse. We'll somehow stumble through. What I always do, Jose, when things are looking kind of grim, I just recite the Second Amendment. That helps me a lot. But we'll be back at 1600 on Monday. And let's see if I got any other words of wisdom that I can impart before we shove off here. Pam Duvall says, have a wonderful weekend, tailgaters. Adios, amigos. Esta. Adios to you, Pam.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Standing firm. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News.